Hey guys, I know a lot of people are bummed about the nerf to Invigorating Icon for the Bulwark, but some of the buffs the Bulwark got in patch 6.0 have turned him into a damage-dealing monster with the parry build. In this video, we'll go over what I think is the best Bulwark build right now, and then the second part of the video will be my solo Bulwark absolute difficulty Decapitation run, so you can see how good the Bulwark is now. The Bulwark can take a full health double sword Tyranid warrior down to 0 health with just 1 parry and gun strike. Even though the parry ability has a 5-second cooldown, you still get a ton of use out of it, and by the time you finish the parry animation and do the gun strike, that takes up almost 5 whole seconds anyway, so it'll be up again when you need it. Also, I just wanted to say, you don't really notice the nerf to Invigorating Icon that much. That's the flag killing ability. The cooldown was increased by 100% when you have that perk selected. But even in my solo run on Absolute, pretty much every time I needed it, it was already back off cooldown. I think it's still the ability to take in that column because the healing in this game is just so good if you can get any kind of healing on your build. If you guys just want to hear each perk for the build listed off quickly, skip to 626. But if you want to hear me talk about the build, just let the next section play. Alright, so these are going to be the perks for the build. I think Intimidating Aura is definitely one of the key perks for the build. It seems to do really decent damage now. In the patch notes, they said it now scales to the difficulty that you're in, so it does pretty good damage. This one's a little bit up to you for the build, but I took Armor of Contempt. I think they said the damage on this one scales now too, so it seemed like it helped a little bit. But you could also go with Scrambled Targeting or Shock and Awe, but I do like to take Armor Reinforcement, and if you're going to take Shock and Awe, you kind of also need to take Defensive Advantage to get like the full synergy of the build. So for me, I just forego both of these, and then I go with Armor of Contempt or Scrambled Targeting. So those are both really good. And then I go with the Armor Reinforcement. Even though they nerfed it a little bit, you still get quite a bit of armor back, so I feel it's still worth it. But Steel Within does seem like it could be pretty good too, so you can experiment with that. For my build, it's Armor Reinforcement. And then for the team perk, Advanced Conditioning, Contested Health fades 50% more slowly. I think especially on like absolute difficulty, when you're getting chunks out of your contested health all the time, having it fade more slowly so you can have a better chance to get it back is really helpful. So I think this is definitely the stronger team perk. And then for this column, I went for Purity of Purpose, but you could also go with Rapid Regeneration. I tried to do a build where I took all the shield talents, so like these 3 and then the shield bash here as well, and it just didn't seem like it was that good. I was trying it out in solo absolute difficulty, but the shield bash is just kind of clunky, and the damage bonus you get doesn't seem to have like a really big payoff, whereas the parry build, when you're one-shotting double sword warriors, it feels good, you know, and you can take them out really quickly. But even if you take all the shield talents and try to buff up your damage and get all the buffs going and then hit a warrior, it still takes like 3 to 4, maybe 5 hits to kill them, and it's just like, it's not very good. Maybe somebody else that has been doing that build could give me some tips on how to run it, but it just playing on solo absolute difficulty, it's too clunky. The damage bonus is not good enough. I'm sure you can make it work on like Team Lethal or Team Absolute. And then for the next column here, I think an Invigorating Icon is still the best out of these 3 because we're not going with shield perks. And then the only other choice is Glory Shield. 20% less range damage is good, and the banner lasting 20% longer, but the ability to heal is just so damn good. It's even with the 100% slower recharge, it's just still really, really good. And every time I needed it, it was back up in my run. So, and then for this last column of the regular perks, 20% more damage in the banner's area of effect. This doesn't come in that useful most of the time, but out of these three, I do think it was probably the most useful. When you're running solo, rejuvenating effect is basically useless because the bots can just automatically come back to life as many times as you need. And then 15% increased melee damage. While that does sound good because you can just quickly do a shield bash and get a 15% buff, somebody else said they're not sure that these buffs are working right now, so I need to test it further. But this could be good, but I did my run with inspiration, but I'm not saying, you know, you can't mess around with this one. For the signature perk, I think Armored Advance is really good. I really like defensive mastery, but every 120 seconds and not being able to control what enemy you insta-kill with the parry is kind of like because you know you always have to parry, so you can't really pick which one you use it on. So that's why I like just the consistent buff you get from Armored Advance. And that's pretty much the build. So it's Intimidating Aura, Scrambled Targeting, Armor Reinforcement, Advanced Conditioning, Rapid Regeneration, Invigorating Icon, and then Inspiration, and then Armored Advance. Alright, in this next section of the video, we'll run through my solo absolute difficulty run, and I'll give you guys some of my best tips on how to get through solo absolute and just kind of give some general commentary for the run. I'll start off by just talking about the current state of the game. I know there's a lot of people that were kind of let down by patch 6.0 because a lot of the updates that have been added to the game are not necessarily gameplay related. A lot of it is cosmetic, and there were a lot of perks change, but some people feel that, you know, it wasn't that much in terms of gameplay. Overall, I think Saber could be doing a better job for sure, but I'm still having fun with the game and I'm not ready to put it down yet. I think it's still worth playing, and I think that some of the changes that were added were at least enough to breathe a little bit more life into the game. And I mean, honestly, in these 2 months leading up to patch 6.0, I had kind of started moving on to other games and just practicing some solo lethal runs, you know, a few times a week just to keep my skills up. But yeah, I had kind of started playing Path of Exile and just downloaded Kingdom Come Deliverance. So Space Marine's one of those games that you can always come back to when there's more content added, and that's kind of one thing that happened with Darktide is there was huge periods of just radio silence from the developers, Fat Shark, and then they would drop a bunch of content in the game and players would come back. And recently they made a huge update and their player numbers surged on Steam, and you could see that in the Steam DB charts. And I have a feeling Space Marine is kind of following the same type of model where the player base is gonna drop down to just like, you know, a few thousand hardcore players when there's big gaps in between updates, and then when they do a big update with lots of content, a lot of people are going to come back to play it. And it sucks for us hardcore fans that wanted it to be more like a live service game, more like Helldivers, where they're constantly adding new stuff. And for sure Saber could do a better job, but you know, we can't make them add more stuff to the game, so we just have to take what we got. So for now, I'm just going to enjoy patch 6.0 and mess around with the little bit of stuff that was added. But anyway, now that that's out of the way, we'll get right into the rest of the run here. So I do think that the fencing chainsword is still one of the strongest weapons on the Bulwark. I need to practice more with the power sword, but I'm most comfortable on the fencing chainsword, and it kind of has like a weird ability to hit flying enemies with the stomp move. It is kind of inconsistent, especially on the zoanthropes, because they tend to fly a little higher than like the Sangor Enlightened. It still does come in a little bit handy sometimes, so overall I think it has more utility. And then I did a few runs with the new buffed up Power Fist, but it's still, for solo lethal, it still doesn't seem as strong, or solo absolute, it still doesn't seem as strong as the chainsword, but I want to play with it more to see if I can get it to work well. One thing that makes this new build so strong is when you parry, if you get off a parry on a double sword Tyranid warrior or any Tyranid warrior, you can just like insta kill them if you get the gunshot afterwards, and it's just hella strong. Like, you can kill stuff really, really quickly. And honestly, it seemed to me that this Bulwark run that I did was even a little bit easier than pre-patch 6.0 Bulwark runs that I've done. So I do think the Bulwark is still in a really, really good spot, and I had an easier time with my Bulwark run on absolute difficulty than I did with even with the Vanguard. So I think the Bulwark, if you're trying to do solo runs, he might be the strongest right now. And I made pretty quick work of that zoanthrope there. If you're running solo with the Bulwark, you kind of need to save your plasma pistol shots for interrupting reinforcements and zoanthropes. And besides that, you don't want to use it too much, because if there's a zoanthrope and you run out of ammo, you could be in a little bit of a tough spot. And the only other thing you can do is kind of try to use the stomp on the chainsword to try to get him in the air. So here we got a pretty nice crowd of double sword warriors, and kind of rip through them without too much trouble here. So we're doing pretty good on the run so far. Got one healing in reserve in case I need it. Then we got 5 or 6 whip warriors here. And then another wave just got called down in a drop pod as well. See, so parry, gun strike, and then just execution. And then you just keep doing that over and over. Parry, gun strike, execute. And it's nice because, you know, due to the invulnerability status during the execute, you have long periods of time throughout the run where, you know, they're not able to hit you, so you have pretty good survivability on top of the Bulwark's, you know, normal tankiness that he comes with as well. And then I'm just casually standing in this Ravener slime, which I probably should have got out of that a little faster. I don't think the poison status actually hurts you, it just kind of like limits your vision, but it is pretty annoying still. And so I had to use the flag here, so we'll just keep in mind when it's back up. And then if I remember, I'll try to call out all the relic locations for you guys in case you don't know them all. Usually there can only be a gene seed right there, but I like to check it anyway. Parry, gun strike, execute. So that could be an armory data there. And then in that corner to my left right now, there can be a relic. And then usually there's a med kit there, and then I'm going to go check the corner to the left. And on the opposite side of this room, by the other boxes, there can also be a relic. And then one thing I did notice is the ammo and med kits are a little bit more sparse on absolute difficulty, so you've really got to be conscious of when you're using your ammo, and then, you know, plan out your healing accordingly as well. And then there was those few ranged Tyranids that I didn't double back to kill, but I'm like, I've already killed so many, I'm not going to worry about it. And it still gave me an A rank for how many I killed at the end of the run, so I didn't feel like I was just like cheesily running through. And then took me that long to realize that I ran past the armory data there. So we're about to the halfway point, almost. Sometimes this bomb room can take quite a while. And then, I don't know if it's actually a thing, but it did seem like the Bulwark's ability to block the ranged spike shooter Tyranid warriors with his shield, it seemed a little more consistent now, because I was having a little trouble before. It seemed like sometimes the damage would still somehow get through, but now it felt like I could pretty comfortably block their shots. As you can see right there, I just had no problem running up to them and just blocking all their shots. And they're one of the worst things about running absolute difficulty, because just a few volleys from them can absolutely tear through you. So just being able to hold your shield up and walk right up to them is really, really nice. And that's another reason why the Bulwark is so strong. Some more crack grenades. And so over here, a little bit to my left, there can also be a relic kind of in that corner area over there. And then sometimes with the waves of Minorous enemies, you can either try to parry them and AoE them to death with the parry damage with the Bulwark, or you can just chainsword stomp them. Both work pretty well. If they're not surrounding you yet, sometimes the chainsword stomp can be a better option. So luckily I was able to get that interruption. And then we got a bunch of spore mines spawning in here, so always try to focus down the spore mines before they get too close to you, because they can be a run ender for sure. And then we'll try to get off this interruption here. Looked like my assault actually finished off the interruption for me, so that was nice. It's always nice when the bots actually like do something, you know? Alright, so we got 3 more double sword warriors. So just stomp, parry, parry, gun strike, execute. Yeah, I don't know. I think they might nerf this parry build, because it almost seems a little too good. And then luckily those attacks were synced up right there, so I was able to parry both of them with the same parry. And then I got my 500 Tyranid Warrior ordeal. Man, when you're running solo, those ordeals get just cranked out really fast, or whatever ones have to do with like killing stuff. So that's kind of nice. And you don't even have to complete the mission for it to still give you credit, so that's pretty nice too. Even if you fail, you'll still get it. And then, yeah, I did not take out that Biovore gracefully. He's still alive right now, but I'm pretty sure he still damages me some more before I'm able to get him down. I'm still figuring out their attack patterns and how to properly take them out quickly. So let's see, we'll run up to him, get him out of his artillery status. And then I need to work on dodging his red circle attack better. Then we'll just shove his own leg through his brain. And plant this next bomb. It's always good to try to hustle and get the bombs down as quickly as possible, especially on like the higher difficulties and running solo, because the waves will just keep like spawning and spawning. So don't worry about killing every single enemy, because they'll just keep coming and coming. But when I know I'm gonna post a run up, I do like to try to kill most of them, just so it doesn't look like I was just trying to cheese it and run through, you know. And then we'll get the last bomb down here. Still got full ammo, 2 crack grenades, and a healing, so things are looking pretty good here. And yeah, always take out the spore mines before they get too close. And I think they said the damage on blocking the range shots and it reflecting and doing damage, I think they said that scales with what difficulty you're on now. So that's kind of nice, but I didn't notice it making a huge difference. But I'll have to mess around with it some more. And then I might fast forward through this section while we're getting ready to start this next attack sequence, because this section can be pretty big. And there can be a relic right here sometimes. Alright, so we'll just zoom through this at 700% speed real quick. There can be a relic in that back corner back there sometimes. And just run around, look for medkits whenever you're getting ready for the wave to come. And then when I'm solo, I like to get in this middle area. That way I can shoot both sides of the explosives, so I can try to take out as many of them as I can before they get up to the top. So we'll just shoot the bombs here. And then just kind of waiting for them to get up to the top. And now we'll start taking them out in melee. And in sections where there's like a lot of Minoris enemies, I really like to spam the chainsword stomp. And I usually run the 50% bigger AoE on the stomp. So it can kind of like get a little bit of range damage before they get too close to you, so I just like spam it while they're still a little bit far away, that way I don't get overrun. Because sometimes once they get completely around you and they're all up in your space, they can start chunking your health down pretty quick if you miss any blocks or parries, and it can actually like add up over time, all that little damage that you take. And then anytime there's Tyranid warriors mixed in with... Wow, look at all those spore mines. I don't know why, but there was like a lot spawning on this section. And there was not even a biovore here. So it seemed like they definitely increased the spore mines on some of the parts of missions for sure. So just watch out for those. I should have been putting a bigger focus on taking those down. But yeah, anytime there's Majoris enemies mixed in with a lot of Minoris, don't worry too much about the Minoris, because when you kill the Majoris, their death does like AoE damage to all the little Minoris enemies around them, so you can get them cleared out pretty quick still. So yeah, we got that section handled without too much trouble. A couple more Minoris to clean up here. So yeah, key things, just don't let them surround you too much. try to spam the chainsword stomp so they don't get too close to you. Focus on Majora's enemies if there's any around. And in the higher difficulties, it's a game of not taking damage needlessly. And especially like in the lighter engagements, you don't want to make any mistakes because there's really not too many opportunities to heal, especially if you're not playing like Bulwark or Vanguard. So you really want to try to make your health last because you can get like kind of whittled down over time, and that's how you can lose a lot of the time. Alright, and I'll probably fast forward this section a little bit here since we're just waiting around. So we'll just zoom through this real quick. Usually when you come down the elevator in the corner behind you, that's another relic spot that it could possibly be. And sometimes it's right there on the exit as soon as you come out of the room too. So watch out for both of those. And then usually sometimes fighting across this bridge can become a pretty big battle. So just get ready as soon as you come out of the room because sometimes it can get pretty crazy. So we got double zoanthropes here. So I'll use my crack grenade. Usually, especially when you're playing Bulwark, save your crack grenades for zoanthropes. And then when you see the zoanthropes, don't forget to use the crack grenades, even if you think you might not need them. Sometimes it's better just to go ahead and use it. Especially if you're playing solo, because there's so many grenades throughout the missions, you can probably just find more. And then, yeah, I should have dodged harder to the side on that zoanthrope beam. I kind of went backwards almost in like a straight line, and it didn't work for me. And then one thing I did notice, I have my FOV on like, I think 1.3 or 1.25. But if you do it like too crazy far out, I think it goes to like 1.45. It starts to get a little buggy, like weird things start happening. And it can really mess up your play. And then not only that, but if you zoom the FOV too far out, it gets a little difficult to see the enemy's attacks in melee, and it can become a little difficult to time your parries and your blocks. So I found 1.2, 1.25 to be like a really good sweet spot. And then sometimes this room right here can be like another big wave, so don't let your guard down, just keep carefully working your way through. If I remember though, on this particular run, it didn't get too bad in here. So we got a lictor. And then for some reason I gunshot the little Minoris enemy behind him. So yeah, even just the parry damage on the lictor, I mean, it only took 2 parries and 2 gun strikes to take him down, and it happened pretty quick, you know, like the overall time to kill was pretty fast, so definitely a strong build. And then we got a ranged spike shooter and 1 or 2 snipers down there, so gotta be a little careful. So we'll just try to double back and take these guys out. I could have kept running, but I was like, I want to try to make it as legit as possible. So I used the flag back on the bridge, and it's almost back up already. So, you know, even if I needed it soon, it's going to be back pretty soon, you know, so it's really, the nerf to it is really not too bad. some people were saying that it's bugged and the timer is actually not reduced according to what the patch notes said. But I think it does seem a little slower, but I would actually probably need to time it. I don't know if I have any videos from before the patch to check the timer, but maybe I can go back and do that. And then while I was yapping, a pretty big wave spawned here. Got a bunch of double sword warriors. And yeah, this is, you know, pretty much almost as bad as it can get in terms of just like, you know, dangerous enemies on the screen. Just had a massive horde of the double sword warriors and just parry through them and gun strike them to death without too much trouble with this build. So I think the Bulwark's still in a good spot. Then we'll just finish off these last two and keep it moving. And you don't notice the nerf to the armor reinforcement perk too much. It seems like my armor's been doing a pretty good job at staying topped off, so I think it's fine. You feel it a little more on Assault because he depends so much on his armor since he has no way to heal up his regular health. Is a little bit of a bummer on Assault. And then, man, I don't know why they nerfed his gun strike perk. It only gave an extra 50% on the gun strike, and that was one of his best builds. So that was a little bit of a bummer. I'm still trying to figure out a good build for Assault. Because that the parry gun strike build for him with the fencing weapon was the only way I had previously cleared solo lethal with Assault. And I haven't been able to do it since patch 6.0. So got a nice little melt-a-bomb placement there. Sometimes I can get myself into trouble with the melt-a-bomb because there's like a slight delay when you're trying to plant it, and a lot of times it gets me hit. But that time it went off pretty smoothly. So, yeah, I don't know if I could have stopped those reinforcements there. Maybe I should have tried. Alright, and then my one death for this run is coming up pretty soon here, and we'll go over the mistake that I did and we can try to learn from it. So the room got kind of crazy, big wave spawned in. I was working my way backwards, and then I kind of tunnel visioned in on that enemy that was up against the wall, and so I didn't give the red circle attack enough respect. And then my other issue was that I should have continued retreating into this tunnel like I did right now, and you don't really want to end up against a wall like where I was when I died. So I should have continued kiting backwards and making more space for myself, but I got a little overconfident and greedy. So anytime you're getting overrun by a big wave, it's always a good idea to just start slowly working your way backwards towards an area that you've already cleared. And then just a second ago there, you saw the shield, the Bulwark shield coming in pretty clutch. I just walked right up to those spike shooter enemies while holding the shield up, so that was pretty cool. I'm really liking that about the Bulwark lately. It feels like it makes him a bit easier to play. Because with the other classes, you've got to like jump around and dodge and try to work your way closer to the spike shooter Tyranid warriors, and it's a little bit more of a pain in the ass. But with Bulwark, you can just hold the shield up and walk straight at him. And then with that perk that does the damage, ranged enemies shoot you and you block it with the shield, you'll be damaging them a little bit too while you're working your way up to them. And things are looking a lot more manageable now. I've just got to take out these snipers. And this can be another, I think it can be a relic location as well as a gene seed location. Up right there behind that like little spool of wire where that spore mine just was. So watch out for that one. And then anytime you're fighting a lictor, just keep in mind that they do a lot of red circle attacks, so always kind of like keep in your mind like I might have to dodge shoot, because that kind of like mental cue sometimes helps me fight them a little better because I'm trying to get better with dodging their red circle attacks. And then I should have parried that, but I dodged it, and then I got hit by his red circle cannon attack. And then he kind of annoyingly runs away, so I've got to go chase him down. Alright, and then luckily I was just able to finish meleeing him down and didn't have to parry any more attacks or anything. And then we're just gonna clear out this last sniper. Alright, and now another wave is spawning, but I think I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna book it out of here. I've already been fighting in here for a long time. Alright, so we'll heal up again real quick. And yeah, I had previously used the flag in this room still when the Ravener was running around and I died up against the walls, and then, you know, it was back up already, so not bad. If the nerf really is working. If not, then my may not be too good, but we shall see. And then yeah, I'm like, come on bots, let's get out of here. Sometimes I have noticed though, if you run past a wave of enemies, sometimes they'll spawn in again somewhere ahead of you. So it doesn't necessarily like always mean you're not gonna have to fight them. Alright, and then we'll just fast forward through this elevator sequence real quick. And we're almost to the boss now, and yeah, that was not too smart. Just meleeed those spore mines. It's kind of weird. You can, I noticed you can knock them back sometimes by meleeing them, but I guess it's only before they've charged up, but I'm not sure, like, how to tell if they're charged up or not. But I think the spore mines did do some damage to that wave, so at least me meleeing it like a kamikaze kind of killed a lot of them too, so that was nice. Alright, and then up here to the left behind this box is another relic location, which there did happen to be one this time. And now we are to the boss. So I always like to grab crack grenades if I can. I save them for when the add-ons spawn in, like in the first and second phase of the fight. He'll spawn in some add-on enemies, and it's always good to try to take them out as quickly as possible. And then usually I'll like run around the room to see if there's any medkits in here. And it's a good idea to do it during the first phase of the fight because he gets a little more dangerous during the second phase, and it's a little harder to look away from him and try to focus on getting medkits. And then usually if you're going to shoot the crates to look for supplies, usually the supplies are always on the bottommost crates, so you can try to aim for those. And then, yeah, I'm just going to let the bots take the heat for a minute and keep looking around. And I think these are the last crates. Anytime you hear him kind of like roar, it usually means he's charging at you. So you always want to turn around and double check and see if you need to get ready to dodge. So now I'm going to start fighting him for real now that I looked around for supplies. And his first phase really isn't too bad once you get used to his attack patterns. He doesn't have too many switch ups. I think he only has like 2 or 3 melee attack patterns. So what I recommend if the Hive Tyrant fight is still a little tough for you is play solo, take it down to a lower difficulty, and just practice fighting him solo. And that'll help you learn the attack patterns a lot more quickly. So I took a couple unfortunate hits there, so I gotta kind of focus up a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and heal up. And then I probably should have used the crack grenades on those double sword warriors, but sometimes I like to save them for the second phase of the fight. And then there is one attack pattern with the Hive Tyrant where it's not safe to take a gun strike, so don't always automatically gun strike if you're fighting him and you parry. If you have the armor reinforcement perk, even if you do get hit, usually it kind of balances out because you get an armor bar back anyway. And then if you can get him to slam into a wall while he's charging, he gets stunned for a second, which I haven't actually seen that happen too many times, so maybe you might not know about that one. And then I dodged right into another AoE field there, so that was a little unfortunate. And then the main thing you really got to watch out for is his beam attacks right here. And sometimes he does a 3-part attack, and then other times it'll just be a single attack. And so always watch out for if it's going to be a 3-part, because if all 3 of those hit you, it could one-shot you on absolute. So my assault bot went down here, so I'm going to go ahead and pick him up. Dodge through the whip attack. And dodge through it again. See, there was an example of taking the gun strike, got me hit. And then I took a beam attack there. If you take a beam attack, sometimes it's good if you have a weapon that does a lot of damage, like a ranged weapon that does a lot of damage. Just charge it up and get your contested health back real quick. And the flag's back up in case I need it. So I heard the wave spawn in, so I'm going to run and try to handle it real quick. And then I turned my camera to the side a little bit so I could try to see if a beam was coming at me there. And then I do finally use the crack grenade. I should have used the first one on the other double sword warrior. But I always, I hold on to him a bit too long a lot of the time. So managed to get the execution right before I took the Hive Tyrant hit there, so that was good. And then tiny bit of crack grenade damage. Those really don't do impressive damage on the Hive Tyrant. That's why it's good to just use them on the add-ins that spawn in. Alright, so we've got him under half now. And then watch out when he pulls the overhead attack. back out of the ground after his spike gets stuck in the ground, because that can damage you too when he pulls it out. And then I ran out of plasma gun ammo here, but it was alright. And that is absolute difficulty solo run for the Bulwark. Let me know what you guys would like to see next. Do you want to see another solo run on a different class? Or would you like to see some builds or other stuff? Thanks for watching, guys.